we would also like to say that growing up, like as children, we had a very imaginative childhood. We used to go like people would just say like, oh, they were very creative and this and that, but honestly, I feel we really kind of lived in a different dimension because
Sometimes.
we believed in fairies and elementals and gnomes, and we knew that existed good and bad in this world. We didn't. It was kind of this inner knowledge, like there are good forces and bad forces in this planet and in the universe, actually. And the funny part is that no one really told us about any of those things. So I wonder how we came up with that. And like,
I guess it was just like
also,
an inner knowing. We
yeah,
just knew those things existed. And I don't even think we lived in a different dimension or a different, I think we could tap into those different dimensions, dimension shifting.
yeah,
um, you know, maybe changing our vibration and being able to interact with those creatures that people think they're not real, but actually they are. I believe they are.
because I think children are really special because they're not like
Programmed.
pre-programmed to believe in one thing or another. So they just feel and they just see the world through their like innocent eyes, I suppose. And we were mentioning that it was only when people start telling us like, oh, this is imagination, like the fairies you talk about, they're not real, or I don't know, the ghost you saw is not real, and all those things. We learned that to fit in with other kids, fit in school, in society in general, we had to kind of block those gifts and block all the opening we had to supernatural experiences because they were not allowed, they were not welcomed in this rational world we live in. And like
Yeah,
gifts of being like a bit of psychic ability that everyone has, but not everyone wants to connect to that. It was just like really suppressed. So it's like a really long journey to actually go back and connect to all those natural gifts we were born with.
I totally agree. And I think it's more like we learn not to express this side of us, almost like by punishment.
Mm.
Um, you know, it's kind of a repression, and not. I'm not saying that people bullied us because of that, but I think we kind of knew that if we behaved in a certain way, people would think we were strange and we wouldn't fit in. And that's why we had to adapt, but not in a very inclusive way, I'd say.
Mm.
We don't allow things that are not considered normal to be part of our everyday life. But I think we had a very good experience when we were children because we allowed ourselves to just exist and just interact with everything that we encountered. Um, I'm not saying only like people, but energies and nature and animals and everything. Every single thing was like a miracle and a gift. And you know, we all always had this super wild imagination.
Mm.
So I remember we were kids and we had many trees around our house, but every time a leaf would fall down in our room, like through the window, we would be super excited and take that leaf
Yeah.
and say, "Oh, it's a message from the universe."
It's a map. Yeah, we used
Yes,
to believe there were war between planets and you had to save the world and the galaxies and all those things.
and those little leaves that fell down through our window, they were the kind of the messages.
Mhm.
That's your next mission. That's what you have to do to save the world or to save the earth, because we even drew like maps from the solar system, and those
Yeah.
planets are good. I mean, they are
Ruled
good
by good
energies are
forces.
ruling
Yeah.
them, and these others, they are being, ruled by negative forces or bad energies. I don't know where how we invented that, but it makes sense for me now.
Yeah. There's a lot of kind of conspiracy theories that talk about those stuff that we knew when we were children. So
Exactly. Even like
crazy.
the planet Earth now kind of being invaded by bad energies and light workers needing to, fight back. It's kind of what we were imaginarily doing without knowing. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. It's very interesting.
And also, like, we used to play this game that is basically like you take a branch of a tree and you have to like wave it in the air 3 times, and then a portal would open, and it was a portal to a different dimension. And when we jumped into that dimension, we had like a task, and we need to save something, and we had time to do that because like there were
The
bad
portal would
things and
close
good
and we
things.
wouldn't be able to come back.
Yeah, we would be stuck in the other dimension. So that was the kind of things we used to play when we were young. So you had to like rush, do the task you needed to do, and then you close the portal and you break the portal, like, and throw it away so no one can ever open that again, and we're safe. And I was like, where did this come from?
Yes,
Honestly.
and I mean, if you believe, I do believe that you can, go to other dimensions and you can open portals. Maybe some people think it's very weird, the concept, but for me, it's very real. And,
Mm-hmm.
how on earth we both could see the same things? We would interact with beings, with creatures, with monsters, and everything as if it was like in front of us, the
Yeah,
same
imagine
way.
AI.
It was not like I was seeing the green monster and my sister was seeing the purple monster. No, we would see the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible.
I think it's just like you can tap into a different like into how things are interacting in this world, because I feel our reality is layered, and you can just jump, kind of shift your perception of things and connect to that level, and then come back to the 3D world that you were living in before. But as we get older, we just learn to live in the 3D because it's how we learn to interact with people. So I remember like being this open channel kind of thing was a good thing and a bad thing, a blessing and a curse, because when we had to go to school, for example, oh my gosh, that was like nightmare, literally nightmare, because it wasn't because the kids were mean or anything like that. It was just the environment. We could feel it in our bodies so strongly, the just like bad, negative, repressive energy. And they're trying to shape kids to be in a certain way. And I remember we would feel sick, literally sick, like wanting to throw up and stuff. So people had to call my parents and like, hey, your daughter is not feeling okay. Can you pick her up? And then my parents would come and I would like literally give one step out of school and I'll feel okay. All the sickness that I was feeling would go away immediately. So people always thought like, oh, she's lying. Of course she's not sick. How can you just step out of school and feel better? Some people might say like it was psychological stuff, but in my opinion, it was more an energetic level, because we would feel this not only in school but in different situations. So when people came to visit our home that had this bad negative vibe, we'd pick it up immediately. And when we were very young, the reaction would be crying, because that's what kids know how to do. They know how to express what they're feeling, and they cannot run away from the space because it's socially unacceptable. So they have to stay in that negative space. And being the energetic sponge that you are as kids, you don't learn how to set your boundaries and don't let the negative vibe come to you. So you just have to endure. And I feel that this constantly enduring of negative things makes you numb, and that's how we're living nowadays, most people. Just numb.
Yeah, and I think especially parents sometimes they don't realize it, but when you're pushing the boundaries of the kid, like even saying, "Oh, go hug that person, kiss that person," if the kid is not feeling like that, especially us that we were very sensitive to energy, it's kind of like disrespecting our boundaries, and then we don't know if it's something that we should just accept and do whatever people grown ups are telling, or if we have to keep up with what we are feeling. And then we realize that we cannot resist them because they're older than us and have the power.
Mm-hmm.
And we end up just numbing out, like you said, because I cannot feel it because I feel so bad that I get sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it wasn't like only school. Sometimes we would go to some people's houses and we would come back home and cry, 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 cry a lot because
Yeah.
we just, you know, absorbed all that bad energy that was in that place, and we had no real explanation for that, only that we felt super drained and emotionally overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. And that's like 6 years old, people. We're not talking about like when you feel drained nowadays. It's like, can you imagine a child reacting this strongly? Of course, our parents got scared sometimes. Like, did something happen to you at that place? It's like, no, just don't like the vibe. I just don't like the energy. It's hard to explain. And I feel nowadays, like, kids are so sensitive and we need to give them more space and need to listen to them more. And but I understand that not all parents are aware of like energetic things, so they don't even know how to deal with that. Sometimes they just diagnose kids with like psychological issues because, oh, he's hyperactive or he's this or she's that. And sometimes it's not the case. We're just drugging kids or put them to sleep. That's so bad.